Scared for Reals 1987.
Hey, it's Chris O'Neill.
And Adam Perry.
All right, Adam. How old are you going to be this year? I haven't done the math.
I'm going to be 80. Yeah. 1987, that's going to make me 38 in February.
Gotcha. So one of your favorite films from 1987. I'm going to let you take the lead on this because this one actually I didn't think was that bad either. It came out the same year as Monster. Well, around the same time frame as Monster Squad. I think there was like a couple of weeks. Go ahead and introduce it.
Well, we're going to talk about the Joel Schumacher cult classic, The Lost Boys.
Yes.
Starring the famous two Coreys.
Yes, and that was the first movie they did together too.
Yep. With, awesome performances from Kiefer Sutherland and Alex Winter and just
Jason Patrick.
Jason Patrick. Jason Miller's son.
Yes.
Of Exorcist fame. This fun out of nowhere vampire movie from Joel Schumacher is hugely popular in the horror community and just a cult classic overall.
And you even had she was like the go-to mom character actress of the 80s. I think it's Deanne West, something like that.
She was definitely one of them. There was a handful of them that were kind of like the.
But she nabbed a couple of Oscars, in a short period of time, and she, notably for Hannah and Her Sisters with Woody Allen, movie there. But she was watchable enough. And Barnard Hughes is the grandfather.
Yeah,
a character actor that go all the way back into the 50s and 60s with him.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us about it, Adam, because obviously you couldn't watch it when it first came out. So when did you discover this movie?
Oh, when did I discover this movie? Probably in the late 90s.
Gotcha.
Like I said, as I'm, one of the movies as I'm discovering all my horror awesomeness and the movies that are supposed to be the must movies to see and all that good stuff. The Lost Boys fell right in there with the vampires.
I know you love your vampires.
Anything monster related, I'm usually all about.
Mm-hmm.
So we were telling the story of Michael Emerson and his younger brother Sam. After their mothers recently divorced, they moved to Santa Carla, California, to kind of start over.
Right.
And as they're getting, the whole family's kind of getting involved in the community and stuff like that, Michael falls in with a group of bad boys that we see kind of bullying people around the pier and just having their way with everybody. Well, it turns out they're vampires.
Well, yeah, and let's back it up a little bit there. He's intoxicated by 80s sensation Jamie Gertz.
Yes.
And at that time, I mean, us boys wouldn't, she's hot, you know.
Yeah.
But he's enticed by her, and that leads him into the bad crowd, you know. Mm-hmm. So it's like as soon as he lays eyes on her, here's going to be trouble. Here's going to be trouble. And even Corey Haim, who plays his brother, was like, hey, no, don't.
Yeah.
He was like, oh, no.
He kind of sees the writing on the wall.
Right.
Well, as Michael's kind of getting, waist deep into with these people, his little brother Sam comes across the infamous Frog Brothers, Edgar and Alan, and they're the self-proclaimed vampire hunters of Santa Carla, and through the awesome media of comic book, they try to convince Sam that vampires are real and they're the guys to call.
Yeah, this is interesting because the Lost Boys and the Monster Squad kind of came out within a few weeks of each other, mm-hmm. and this seems like an unofficial Monster Squad in its own right, although it's not central. That's not the central focus, but it is an interesting concept. Again, the kids, the teenagers.
Yeah,
because Jason Patrick's character is coming of age into himself. He's like almost a young adult,
mm-hmm.
and it seems like the kids and the teens are the ones that have a better idea of what's going on than the adults do, just like the Monster Squad.
Yep.
But This one's a little bit. It's got some tongue in cheek because they call this a dark comedy horror movie because there is some humor, especially by the grandfather Barnard Hughes.
Sure.
But it is interesting. I wanted to like make note of the Monster Squad and the Lost Boys. There is some similarities in the plot. So go ahead.
So Michael, he kind of gets lured into the vampire's little hideout here. It's an abandoned luxury hotel that's sunken beneath a cliff from the 1906 earthquake.
Yes.
And after some mind manipulation and some tricks played on Michael, the head vampire, played by none other than Kiefer Sutherland, ends up tricking Michael into drinking some blood. And some more weird stuff starts happening to Michael. They, end up hanging off the edge of a bridge, and Michael thinks he's falling to his death and wakes up in his bed.
Right. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. And Michael begins to start experiencing some weird feelings. He starts turning into a vampire himself.
Yeah, it's interesting how Corey Haim's character, his brother, notes that he's half vampire, so he's not 100% vampire. Yeah. Either is Jamie Gertz, but they're kind of close.
Right.
They have to get their first. I think it's like they have to get their first victim, and then they become a full-on vampire.
Right.
And there's a whole subplot too with the mom's divorced, and she meets up with this owner of a video store.
Yeah.
His name is Max, and Corey Haim has some gut instincts about Max. So I don't know if you want to talk about that subplot at all as well.
Well, I was going to get to it. Kind of like.
Oh, I interrupted as usual.
It more plays in towards the end of the movie than
kind of. Yeah, there are some things that happen. They when he comes over to the house for the first time, and
I mean, obviously, their dog Nanook doesn't take to Max right off. You could tell there's something off about Max,
right?
But for the most part, for the first 3/4 of the movie, he seems like a decent guy.
Yeah.
For the most part, even though something's off about him.
Right.
Basically, spoiler alert, even though this movie's over almost 40 years old. As our climax plays out, we find out that Max is the head vampire. As they begin to Michael begins to fight back against Kiefer Sutherland and his gang of vampires, and they start taking them out one by one. We find out that Kiefer Sutherland was not the head vampire like we originally thought, but it is in fact Max.
Yeah, you kind of get the idea that he isn't. There's going to be a plot twist at the end.
Right.
I mean, it is kind of predictable, and the climactic fight with the vampires seemed to happen so quickly, and it seemed like it was easy to kill these vampires.
Well, I mean, they use just normal vampire lore. I mean, holy water and daylight and garlic, and
It's interesting though. I wish they would have done more with it, because Max being the head vampire after all, that's the plot twist.
Right.
He somehow is able to see his own reflection in the mirror. Remember that whole test sequence? It's like I would have liked to have gone a little bit farther. I mean, the movie was a good running time, but how did he get that power? I mean, what was that power? Because all vampires, you can't see a reflection. That's the old lore.
Right.
But somehow he's able to
manipulate it. Yeah.
Manipulate it. He can have garlic. He can have holy water spilled on him and all that kind of stuff. So
right.
How is that possible? That's one thing the movie never kind of like lays forth, is how he got that and how he's easily destroyed.
Right.
That's the thing. The climax, I found that it's the only fault I have with the movie, actually, because up until that point it really builds up a cool story, and there the comedy with the two Coreys, and obviously, I mean, that's why they were after this movie they were in tons of movies together, because they had a good rapport, good chemistry on screen, and
right.
But it's just the way they're dispatched of, and it's like Max is the most powerful. You think he wouldn't have been killed so quickly or dispatched of it so easily. That was my only fault with the movie, but
right. I mean, but Max does succumb to like a normal vampire, stake / antler through the heart.
I know, but that's what I mean.
Yeah,
how was he able to? Because obviously, Kiefer's character David and the rest of the vampire gang, they succumb to the garlic,
right.
the holy water. How was Max able to like rise above that? And he just gets dispatched of so easily. You were kind of like, oh, they're gonna do like one final twitch of the. One last gasp of the vampire, but that didn't happen. It was just kind of interesting.
Saves the day.
Yeah, Grandpa was cool, but it was, to me, it was just like, okay, you have a cool plot twist like that, but it didn't pay off as I thought it was going to, when watching the movie. I mean, I saw it like years ago when I was a teenager, and I remember it being a whole lot better than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
Because I kind of watched previews, and I'm like, this looks cheesy and stupid, me being a movie snob and all, but it was above average movie.
Right.
But anyway, I keep interrupting.
No,
your thoughts.
it's fine. Yeah, so we've basically we've gone through it. The climax of the movie is the big showdown between the gang of vampires, Michael and the Sam and the Frog Brothers, at Michael's grandfather's house. One by one, all the vampires get taken out until we find Lucy and Max show up, and Max reveals himself as the head vampire, and he's going to turn Michael and Sam's mother, Lucy, into his bride.
Right.
And in cues, Sam and Michael's grandfather comes through the wall with the truck, and Max takes the stake / like I said, deer antler through the heart, and that puts an end to him. And the movie ends with his famous line: "There's one thing living in Santa Carla I could never stomach. It was all the damn vampires."
Yes. Yeah, he gets some cool lines in the movie, and but
it also kind of alludes. I don't know if you caught on this. When they first show up at their grandfather's house, he has this red liquid, this red drink,
right,
that he doesn't allow anybody else to touch, and he takes a drink of it after he kills Max. So it kind of and after seeing what Michael drinks, so are they suggesting that their grandfather's a vampire too, or a half vampire?
But they don't really. That's one thing I was thinking
kind of
too.
Suggestion,
maybe, but the way it was presented, it didn't make you. I was like, oh, maybe it was, but they didn't really do anything with that, and I wish they would have a little bit. Not. I don't want like a whole big reveal because that's kind of stupid, but at least kind of like a wink at the audience, and it didn't push it as far as I thought they were going to do with that either.
Right.
There's just a few things that just I found like underwhelming, and that could have been more spectacular somehow. Again, I'm not a screenwriter, Adam. I'm not a filmmaker. I just, just watch a lot of films, and I know things when interesting plot developments, and that would have been kind of interesting if they suggested that Grandpa was a vampire himself. But again, they didn't really. It wasn't like a real. They didn't have like any like music cue or anything to suggest other than him just drinking it. It's like he didn't drink it slowly. It wasn't in slow motion to suggest anything else. So it's kind of like, okay, maybe. When you said that, I'm like, oh, maybe. But it didn't really go that far. And unfortunately, they ran out of budget and they had to end the movie. Because it did have an $8 million budget, which is not too bad.
Or sometimes just that's how they write movies. They purposely don't explain stuff just to
Well, yeah, but at least leave it ambiguous. And to me, it wasn't an ambiguous scene the way it was shot. You know what I mean? It was like it's something that could have been just maybe even another couple of seconds to slow down the film, the frame a little bit, just to, or like wink at the audience or something like that. break the fourth wall. I don't know. They could have done many other things to allude that Grandpa was a vampire, but I haven't. Did you read something about it that was cut?
No, it's just something I noticed throughout watching the movie every time I've seen it. Yeah,
what was that, old fart? It's like a little old fart section in the refrigerator.
Yeah.
With his liquid and his Oreo cookies.
Yeah. But I mean that's the gist of the movie, man, and it in all of its 1980s glory, including a big music scene in the beginning with the sax player there, who
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Like the main song in the film, Lou Gramm sang that, didn't he?
I don't know.
I think he did.
I mean, obviously, the main theme is "People Are Strange," but it's obviously not the Doors version.
Oh yeah, that was Echo and the Bunnymen.
Yeah,
it was their version of it, it was actually a respectable version of the song. But I don't know if you know about this. First-time screenwriters Janice Fisher and James Jeremiah. Actually, the script sold for $400,000 back in '85, and I guess they announced their acquisition of the project at the American film market. Warner Brothers later joined the project, taking over domestic distribution and stuff. Now, I don't know if you caught it. I had to, it kind of made sense after hearing that it was based on, J.M. Barrie's Peter Pan, The Lost Boys.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I get it now. A twisted type of Never Never Land.
Right.
But I guess, and I actually, there are some, like the aura of Interview with a Vampire, because Jeremiah said he had actually read Interview with a Vampire, and he goes, and in there was a 200-year-old vampire trapped in the body of a 12-year-old girl. Since Peter Pan had been one of my all-time favorite stories, I thought, what if the reason Peter Pan came out at night and never grew up and could fly was because he was a vampire?
Huh.
So that was an interesting kind of concept, blending Interview with a Vampire with, Peter Pan.
Yeah.
Who would have thought you could combine those two?
I mean, you wouldn't think so, but I mean, obviously someone was smart enough to make it work.
I'm just glad they actually cast it like an actual man instead of a female, like most of the Peter Pan productions on Broadway and stuff. I don't know if you've...
Yeah, okay. I mean...
No, I mean, it's just kind of...
That doesn't bother me too much, but okay.
Well, a boy should be played by a boy. But that's just me.
But,
so according to...
theater and, the way they think of theater. And,
So the central theme, according to the screenwriters, is organized around loose allusions to Peter Pan as the tension surrounding the family and the world of contemporary adolescence. You could kind of get that sense of, where do I belong? Where do I fit in?
Right.
It happened a lot, especially in the 80s movies. There was a lot of,
trying to fit in.
Right. Look at Corey Haim, okay? Yeah. I think it was a year before he was in Lucas. That was with Charlie Sheen. Remember that?
Yep.
Trying to fit in, get popular. Let's play some football. He wasn't that good of a football player, but he actually saves the football team from losing at the end. He gets injured, falls in love with a girl and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, 80s.
Yeah, it's definitely 80s vibes, and the music, of course, had the little cheesy synthesizer. And Joel Schumacher, I don't know if you read anything about this, but he proudly gloated this was one of the greatest casts in the world. And I mean, Schumacher envisioned the character of Star as being a waifish blonde like Meg Ryan, but he was convinced by Jason Patric to consider Jamie Gertz, who had just worked with Patrick in Solar Babies. That's a cult film right there. I don't know. Did you watch that?
I've never seen that one, no.
Yeah, I haven't watched it either, but it's definitely like must-watch cult films of the 80s, Solar Babies. I don't know much about the movie, but apparently it was let's see, it's a sci-fi film. That much I do know. But Schumacher was surprised when his first choice for the role of Lucy, we talked about Diane or Deanne West, And after seeing Kiefer Sutherland and at close range, now that's a powerful movie. I don't know if you've seen that one.
I haven't seen that one, no.
Well, you got Christopher Walken playing the part of this abusive father, and Sean Penn as his son. It's like a crime family kind of thing, and it's pretty intense movie. It's actually not.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I mean, I think Kiefer had not a huge part, but he was one of the supporting guys in the movie.
Yeah.
It's been years since I've seen that, and again, I didn't watch the whole thing. But Schumacher arranged a reading with Kiefer, at which they got on very well. Now, Sutherland had just completed work on another big movie, Stand By Me.
Yeah.
Wasn't too nice in that movie either.
No, I mean, so Corey Feldman too.
Yeah, Corey Feldman was in that one too.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he was offered the role of David. Schumacher and Sutherland can do almost anything. He's a character actor. You can see it in The Lost Boys. That's what Schumacher said about Kiefer Sutherland. He has the least amount of dialogue in the movie, but his presence is extraordinary. I do agree because
100%.
He's the one you remember the most when the credits roll.
When you look at all the merch and advertisement for Lost Boys, it's Kiefer Sutherland.
Yeah, I mean, Jason Patrick is the star.
Yeah.
But man, oh man, the focus was, Kiefer Sutherland. I mean, he steals the show.
He sure does. And like I said, when like Fright Rags, puts out their Lost Boy line, or you go and just any poster, you're seeing Kiefer Sutherland, front and center.
They still have like a Lost Boys merchandise thing.
Big,
huh?
It's big.
Wow.
Lost Boys is really, really big, dude.
Yeah, I remember it being. It did do well. I mean, it made like almost 40 million. It did very well. I didn't think it was like a huge movie though.
I mean, yeah, maybe not like mainstream. If you're comparing it to just any movie, yeah, Lost Boy kind of falls in the middle. Horror community though, it's huge. It's a massive. That's just why like the sequel sucked. But
they made it. Talk about the sequel, because I think I heard something about it, but it just was like kind of came and went.
I only saw there's two sequels.
Two of them.
I only saw the first one. It wasn't good. It basically catches up with Corey Feldman.
Corey Feldman is in it.
He's the star in it. Yeah.
Oh wow.
So you're basically picking up where his character, he's an older kind of isolated hermit type guy, and more vampires are coming and stuff like that. I think his brother turned into a vampire or something like that. And
Kiefer's half brother Angus was in that one. I see.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Like I said, I barely remember it. I only watched it once.
And Corey Haim has a
I was just gonna say the big thing at the end of that movie was seeing Corey Haim show up at the very end, and he's revealed as a vampire. And
really?
It cuts to credits, and then we're supposed to get a third movie. I never watched the third movie.
Well, yeah. In case you haven't heard, I remember kind of hearing about it. I mean, it wasn't a theatrical release. It was like a direct
to DVD.
Yeah, direct to DVD. And a third movie, The Thirst, The Lost Boys, The Thirst. The second one was Lost Boys, The Tribe. Mm-hmm. The third one, Lost Boys, The Thirst. Again, released on DVD 2010. Feldman served as an executive producer, and he reprises his role as Edgar Frog. And Newlander returned as Alan Frog. Well, Haim, who was not slated to be part of the cast, died, so he couldn't be part of it, but even if he wanted to. So a fourth film was discussed as well as a Frog Brothers TV series, but with the Warner premiere kind of dissolved, and the projects thankfully never materialized. It's like you can strike gold if you're lucky twice, but I mean, that was the thing about the Lost Boys was it had charm, it was fun. Mm-hmm. It didn't take itself too seriously. That is one thing I will say about The Lost Boys is thank God it did not take itself too seriously, because if it did, it would not have been a good movie.
Right.
Everything was, almost everything. Again, the only problem I had was the underwhelming ending, and plot twist that could have had packed a better punch. But overall, it was a great movie, and it just, I guess there was a comic book series. I don't know if you, because David makes a reappearance in the comic book. The Reign of Frogs got like a hand rising out of the ground. Looks like a samurai sword.
Yeah,
but I guess it was a sequel to the first film and a prequel to Lost Boys: The Tribe, which was the second one.
Gotcha.
And
I
then,
mean, I heard there was a comic book. I didn't read it. I didn't look into it.
Right.
And
then in 2016, Vertigo released a comic book miniseries, The Lost Boys, where Michael, Sam, and the Frog Brothers must protect Star from her sisters, the Blood Bells.
Interesting.
And I guess there was a musical adaptation that was supposed to be in development last year. I don't know what's going on with that. Hopefully, I mean, it's just like, how a musical. I guess you could do a musical on anything.
Yeah, they're changing every 80s movie into a musical. Beetlejuice, Back to the Future.
Yeah, that's right. Beetlejuice.
Rocky was a musical.
Lord of the Rings was a musical.
Yeah.
And now the Joker movie, the new Joker movie is going to be a musical.
Yeah. No, but like Broadway stage type.
Yeah.
I don't know if Joker's going to Broadway.
No,
but,
never know.
It could be. But.
I mean, if you can bring Lost Boys, you can bring Beetlejuice to Broadway, Lord of the Rings. I guess you could do anything.
Yeah. Hey,
Goodfellas Broadway play. Let's do it.
Young Frankenstein. Like I said, Young Frankenstein, Rocky, Back to the Future. I mean, for some reason, they're going after these 80s movies and turning them into. I mean, some are good, some are terrible, but I mean, to each his own. Lost Boys. I don't know if that will work, but who knows?
Yeah, I mean, it's in talks, so who knows how far they're going to go with it. But it just, like you were saying, it's just. It's quite the popular thing, and more popular than I ever imagined. Because I remember hearing about one of the sequels, but I didn't know. I didn't know there was a trilogy of sorts.
Yeah,
of movies. Now there was a novelization too. Craig Shaw Gardner was given a copy of the script and asked to write a novelization to accompany the film's release at the time. Gardner was like the Frog Brothers, managing a comic book store as well as writing. Now, the novelization, I'm reading this here, was released 220 pages. That's kind of a hefty little novel. I mean, for a movie like this, you expect like maybe 150 pages or something, But it includes several scenes later dropped from the movie, like Michael working as a trash collector for money to buy his leather jacket. You also get the expanding roles of the opposing gang, the Surf Nazis, who were seen as nameless victims of the vampires in the films. Also, several tidbits of vampire lore, such as not being able to cross running water and salt sticking to their forms. I would have liked to know more about Max. How did he get the power to see himself, to not have any qualms about getting splashed with holy water and garlic?
Right.
Because that to me is the most interesting part, but they never developed that.
Yeah.
But
I mean, apparently you're just supposed to take it as he's the head vampire and he's got different powers.
I know.
Yeah.
That's just, I mean, there's I guess technically no such thing as perfection in stuff in movies, but I mean I wish they would have, even if it was just like a minute or two explanation,
right, and
then move on. But I mean, 97 minutes is a pretty good running time. You don't want to go too much longer than that.
Sure,
we're making a movie like this. Some of them run way too long.
Yeah,
especially nowadays. But anything else you'd like to?
That's just like I said. That's Lost Boys. It's it's still to this day so popular within the horror community. It's like you said, like I was saying earlier. Just compared to normal movies of the 80s, this movie probably falls about middle of the pack. Yeah. In horror circles and horror communities, this thing is in the top tier of greats. And like I said, you go to any horror convention or any horror merch website, the Lost Boys are very much well represented and very much well discussed. I mean, even Jason Patrick and Kiefer Sutherland will make appearances at horror conventions together to do a Lost Boy panel from time to time.
Nice.
You know, I mean, and we know how big Kiefer Sutherland is now, especially after the fallout of 24. I mean, he's a massive, massive star, and for him,
he's a country music singer too.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
so he's always
everywhere.
he's always doing something, and that says a lot for the type of person he is to still take time to acknowledge this movie he did almost 40 years ago.
Right.
Yeah, so to me, that's just really, really cool. I mean, obviously, Corey Feldman, he lives in his own world, but he's always championing Lost Boys in one way or another and making money off of it and doing something with it.
Yeah.
And there's like I said,
Also Friday the 13th as well with him.
Yeah,
a little bit.
But he was just in the one movie, and he hasn't. I mean, other than narrating and the Crystal Lake Memories documentary.
Oh, he doesn't show up at conventions for that either.
I mean, like Corey Feldman does what Corey Feldman does. you know, I'm sure he he's got his little headshots of Friday the 13th at his table.
Could be, yeah.
But you see him when you listen to him in interviews and stuff like that. He definitely pays more attention to Lost Boys than he does his Friday the 13th legacy. I mean, obviously he'll talk about all his the Corey movies and Goonies and all that way before anything else. But Lost Boys is usually the one he gets asked most about.
It seemed like that he really enjoyed that one, I guess. The Lost Boys.
Yeah, I mean, it had to have been a fun movie to do. I mean, it's a vampire movie, and he's playing a vampire hunter.
Yeah. So, I don't know if you know this, Adam, but apparently Santa Cruz, where Santa Carla takes place, was once plagued with a reputation. I mean, you know how they talk about it like one line, the murder capital of the world? Remember how that's...
Yep.
Apparently, there were some real brutal murders that were occurred by three very different disturbed guys in the early 70s.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're named John Lindley Frazier, Herbert Mullen, and Ed Kemper. Apparently, Santa Cruz endured 28 murders over a 30-month period between 1970 and 73. So,
oh, wow.
Very interesting. But, yeah, I mean, a lot of people have tried to analyze that the boys were sexually abused and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't get that vibe. I think it was just about finding your place in the world and everything like that, especially for Jason Patric's character.
Yeah, there's I hate to go there, but I guess I'm gonna have to just for sake of conversation. I mean, obviously Joel Schumacher was openly gay, so this movie came out. Over time there was a lot of rumors and innuendos that there was a bunch of subplot, with little boys and stuff like that. I never got that vibe like you. To me, it never crossed my radar.
Right.
I think that a lot of that is mostly just internet talk and speculation, and
right.
And that's just that. It is what it is. I think Joel Schumacher just made an 80s vampire movie to the best he could, and he did it well.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think they were kind of they kind of shot it with a sequel in mind from what I'm reading here. Yeah. The closing line, as you alluded to, when Grandpa's, talking about killing vampires.
Right.
But there was nothing until like 21 years later.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It's a good. Again, there's movies that are I you know how I feel about sequels, so right. I think it was fine the way it was, but and the sequels they did make were direct to video. Did you like what you saw in the second one?
I didn't really care for it was a one-time watch for me, and I didn't even watch the third one. But that doesn't say that I mean, there was definitely a demand for a sequel, for many, many years. I mean, there was public demand for a Lost Boys sequels for a long time, and I know Joel Schumacher personally talked about it a lot before he passed away.
Right.
What happened with the breakdown in production and why we never got one before and why we got one that we did that went straight to DVD. I mean, that's just movie studio executive.
That's the business,
politics.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just like Beetlejuice that we just got. I mean, that movie was over 36 years in the making.
Beetlejuice in Hawaii.
Yeah, I mean, it was literally that was 36 years in the making,
Right.
and massive demand for a sequel.
Right.
So, I mean, and the same thing with Lost Boys. So, I mean, if you're a massive fan of Lost Boys and you enjoyed the sequels, I mean, I'm glad you got a sequel, and I'm glad they were able to put something together and do it. And before Corey Haim died, and I mean, Joel Schumacher was already passed away by the time the sequel came out, but at least there's enough interest from other members of the cast to come back and do something like that.
Right.
So, again, the sequel wasn't really my thing. I didn't really care for it, but again, it's so popular. The demand was there for those sequels, and if you enjoyed them, good for you. Yeah,
well, that's the thing. Like when a movie leaves you wanting more, sometimes it's best not to give them more. You know what I mean?
Because to a point, I mean,
hypothetically, the whole grandpa figure would have been interesting to see him continue on his adventure, or maybe get a prequel. How he became a vampire hunter, because it's obvious he was. You see him like building a stake out of something, and you see random things. Again, it's just unfortunate. They focused on the kids, which was important as well. But if he's like the ultimate badass vampire hunter, it's like, why?
But again, that's one take of it. I mean, the general.
Well, there's a few different angles you could attack it from.
Yeah, but the Frog Brothers are the icons of the movie. So I mean, that's why they went the route to focus on. Yeah, and
they did some with. They did focus on them a little bit in the movie we just saw.
Yeah,
but again, the focus was on Jason Patric and his brother kind of growing up. You know, and dealing with a broken family. They're in a different place. They're not comfortable. And Jason Patric especially trying to find out who he is. And some of the subplots are actually cooler than that plot. That's what I'm saying.
Right. And what I'm saying is, as the movie came out and the popularity grew and the legend and lore of the Lost Boys movie came out, you had two icons come out of that movie.
Yeah.
It was Kiefer Sutherland and Corey Feldman.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, those were the people you saw on all the movie posters. Even though Corey Feldman's part is very minor, it really is.
Right. He's only in like 5 or 6 scenes in
But those two characters are the one that the audience identified most with, and why you see them mostly in all the merchandise and all the pictures, and why Corey Feldman did the 2 sequels.
Mm-hmm.
So again, when you do a sequel, a lot of fanfare goes into writing a sequel, and so the sequel is going to play to that audience. You want to see more of the Frog Brothers? Well, here you go.
Right. Right. Well, I'm glad I didn't watch any of the sequels. It sounds like from what you said, I didn't really miss much, which is good.
Yeah.
So, but there's, as far as I know, the comic books are still in print. The novel is still out there.
Well, that's another thing I was going to bring up. You don't see that much nowadays, a novelization of the movie.
Yeah, I remember that was a big thing in the 80s. Like, I remember reading Willow when that came out. I read the book, and I think I read the book of Willow several times. I wore out the book.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember liking the book better than the movie in some cases. But, I do miss those movie tie-ins. They did it with Indiana Jones as well, which was kind of cool. But, they obviously don't have that because, You don't
really see that much, movie novelization,
No, and I mean, look at what they did with Star Wars. I mean, they had a whole Lucas greenlit, like, hey, you want to write a whole universe behind what I created? Great, have fun with it.
Sure.
He approved all of it. So
yeah.
I think he read each book before it was published, and he gave it the thumbs up. There's a whole bunch of stuff out there.
Right. That's not to go down a huge rabbit hole. That's why like the Han Solo movie, so many people were upset about it, because there's a series of Han Solo books that are beloved in that Star Wars community, and they didn't even touch them.
No, it was just as soon as Disney. Yeah, a lot of people were upset at Lucas for selling it to Disney.
Listen,
I know.
Disney offers you $4.5 billion.
Well, I understand that. I personally just wished he would have like stayed on, finished his 9-part story arc like he wanted.
Yeah.
But like you said, he's kind of lazy.
He's lazy, but like, I don't know if you've heard interviews with him. Like when he talked about the back 3 movies, he would always say, "Well, we don't have the technology to do them." It's like, well, where do you want to film it? In space? I mean, we got all the technology in the world to make whatever you want on screen.
Right.
And he would say, "So, well, we don't have the technology to do it."
And it's not like they wouldn't give him the money, because every Star Wars movie, even the last 3, in the trilogy, as bad as they were awful. They made a crap load of money.
So much money. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, but again, I mean, if you're not planning on making any more movies and someone's throwing $4.5 billion at you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I know. I understand.
I
I completely understand that. I just, as a casual Star Wars fan, I wish he would have stayed with it. Because even though episodes 1 through 3 were kind of they still had Lucas's involvement.
Right.
Whereas the last 3, he wasn't. That's just me. But hey, we're talking about The Lost Boys. What are your thoughts on it? Do you totally disagree with me about the ending being underwhelming? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Well, comment below. And I always forget to do it right at the beginning, but subscribe to Scared for Reals on YouTube so you never miss an episode. So this is like a series within a series. The movies that we love the year that we were born. So 1987, you chose The Lost Boys. What do you think? You can, again, reach out to us through YouTube. We're also on Instagram, Facebook, and X. Our handle is at Scared for Reals.
We'll see you next time on Scared for Reals.